Did you know that following the guidelines of the American Diabetes Association will give you diabetes? Stay tuned, and I will explain how that all works. Hey, I'm Dr. Rasan with Get a Healthy Body. By subscribing and following these videos, we will show you everything you need to know to master health, get healthy, and stay healthy. I have so many patients asking me, what am I supposed to eat? I read this article, I went on this website, and I talked to my doctor, and they all told me to eat low-fat and high-carb. And I'm pre-diabetic. What do I do? It's really tragic that still, in this day and age, the physiological principles are so definitely established. We know exactly the mechanism, and yet the official guidelines are in direct opposition to what gets you healthy. There's a great book called The Schwarzbein Principle. It's by a medical doctor who allowed herself to think for herself. She found that if she had pre-diabetic patients and she gave them low-fat, high-carb diets, they developed diabetes every time. Then she thought about it, turned it around, and gave them low-carb, high-fat, and high-protein, and they reversed their diabetes. This has been established since 1850. Even before we knew what insulin was or how it worked, they knew that you could reverse diabetes with low-carb. You lose weight with low-carb, no doubt about it. Then we figured out how insulin works. Insulin is a storage hormone that develops insulin resistance, which prediabetes is, and it develops only in response to sugar and carbohydrates. Yet to this day, we hear that we're supposed to eat low-fat and high-carb. We've developed this fear of fat that totally deprives us of any logical thinking. We're so afraid of fat that whatever it takes, just eat low-fat because, after all, it can't be good, can it? Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but fat just can't be good. Yet there is no scientific evidence that high-quality fat causes any kind of disease. Yes, trans fats, processed vegetable fats, and vegetable oils, like corn oil, are full of toxins because of the processing. Those are not good fats. Good fats are butter, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, natural fats that will not harm you. Here's something to understand though. Insulin is a storage hormone. Whenever you eat sugar or carbs, your body produces insulin. Insulin takes the sugar out of the blood and puts it into the cell. The cell uses what it can, but it can't use a whole lot, so it converts the rest into fat. Once you eat more sugar and your insulin stays high, that insulin tells the cell to hold on to the fat. As long as you have high insulin, there's no way for your body to retrieve that fat and use it for energy. Your body is supposed to have a balance between fat storing and fat burning. But when your insulin is high, the prevalence is to store the fat, store the fat, store the fat. Then of course you get hungry because you have no access to that energy. Here's a little trick to keep in mind. Even though fat is good and carbs are bad, you can't eat carbs and fat at the same time, because eating the carbs will store fat and keep you from retrieving the fat. It's okay to add in a little bit of fat while you learn to eat fewer carbs, but you can't keep eating more of those because the carbs are still going to store that fat. What you want to do is reduce the carbs over a period of time, and everyone is different. I don't know what it's going to be for you to reduce that insulin resistance, but a great thing to measure is your A1C. Measure it, reduce your carbs and see what happens. As you get closer to 5.0, your insulin resistance goes down, and then you can eat as much healthy fat as you want. Not only will you not gain weight, but you will also not develop diabetes. If you're pre-diabetic, you will reverse it. Insulin resistance is prediabetes triggered by sugar and carbs. Some people think, yeah, I don't eat any sugar, and they think it means they're not eating those little white cubes or spooning sugar out of the bag. But any carbohydrate will trigger insulin, and bread is just one step away from sugar. Sugar is already sugar. Bread is just 10 minutes away from sugar. Once you eat it and start digesting it, it turns into sugar and triggers insulin. It doesn't matter if it's brown rice or whole grain bread. While whole grain is better than white toast, it is still a carbohydrate. If you're insulin resistant or want to avoid insulin resistance, then you can't go that way. You cannot eat a lot of grains. Some people can get away with it. They're lucky. We're not all the same. Carbs increase your blood sugar, Fat does not stimulate your blood sugar, maybe a point or two, but it does not create a lot of volatility in your blood sugar. If you want to run the test, the reason I mentioned the A1C is that it's a long-term measure of your blood sugar. Whenever you have sugar in the blood, some of it gets stuck on your red blood cells. They measure hemoglobin, A1C, which measures how much sugar gets stuck over a period of time. Since the red blood cell lives about 3 to 4 months, the A1C gives you a really good average of how much sugar was in your blood over that period. Once you start cutting back, if you measure after a month, you might have come down a little bit, and your real improvement is bigger than it shows because some of that sugar was already stuck in the first 2 months. It's an inexpensive test, but I would suggest you measure it every couple of months. If you can drop 1/10 or 2 every couple of months, you're doing really well. So how do you know if you're insulin resistant? What are some of the signs and symptoms? One classic sign is if you get tired after eating a meal. It's because your body can't process it properly. The blood sugar shoots up, and your body spends a lot of energy converting that blood sugar into triglycerides or fat. That's one thing, but you can have many different presentations. A lot of people have what we call roller coaster blood sugar. Another sign is irritability, or the inability to go for several hours without a meal. Your body is designed to create level blood sugar, and when you don't eat, it has mechanisms to maintain blood sugar from stores of fat and glycogen. If your body can't do that, if you get irritable, hungry, lightheaded, or have headaches, if you feel like you have to eat something every 2 to 3 hours, then you probably have insulin resistance along with hypoglycemia, because you've taught your body to rely on sugar or carbohydrates for energy. Relying on sugar increases your insulin level, and now you can't pull energy out of your fat stores. Your body doesn't have a backup for energy, and that's why you have to keep putting in all that food, all those snacks, primarily sugar and carbs, because that's what your body has learned to live off. Your body is going to protest a little bit anytime it's used to something. Once it has a habit, once it depends on something, it's not going to give it up without a little bit of a fight, but it's not as bad as you think. Start with increasing fat and protein, and move away from the carbs gradually. Before you know it, you'll find that you have a little more stability, and then you can cut back further and increase the fats. A healthy person should be able to go 6 to 8 hours without fainting, irritability, or anything like that. Your physiology is the same as your ancestors, and they did not wake up to toast and tea. They did not have a breakfast buffet. They went out as hunter-gatherers. To this day, they have to go out and find something and catch something before they can eat. That's what your physiology is adapted to. We feed our pets once or twice a day. We don't feed them every 2 hours because they're adapted to their food supply. In nature, it works even better because they don't eat things out of a can. If you hear someone say anything different, they really are not very well informed. There are things we can discuss. There are things that are a little controversial. This is not controversial anymore. Take the time to read a couple of good books. Find some books that actually talk about the principles and explain the physiology. If you want to know more, stay tuned, and we'll come back to these topics and talk more about them. One other thing to keep in mind to reduce insulin resistance is exercise. We're not talking about exercise to burn calories and lose weight. We're talking about activating the body, making your muscles do work, which makes them more sensitive to insulin. There is a physiological change in the receptors. There's something called a GLUT4 receptor on the muscle, and when you start using that muscle, it will take more blood sugar in with less insulin. Insulin resistance is what we've been talking about all the time. Insulin sensitivity is the opposite of that. Exercise will make your muscles more sensitive, so they will take that blood sugar and burn that energy without the insulin. You want to cut your carbs, reduce your sugar, and start with the worst ones, what we call the white trash. White flour, white sugar, anything processed that is completely devoid of nutrients. Then you follow through and reduce the quality carbs that are still not good human food. We've been told for so long that carbs are necessary, that glucose is what your brain runs on. Well, it doesn't work like that. Your body can make glucose from all sorts of things, and in the absence of glucose, your body will prefer something called ketone bodies, which is what you have every morning when you wake up, or after a fast or period of starvation. Your body is very well adapted to using things besides glucose. They tell you that carbs are necessary. That is not a fact. There are essential fatty acids from fat, essential amino acids from protein, but there is no such thing as essential carbohydrates. That is a myth and a lie. You can live for years without a single gram of carbohydrate, and you would do really well. You would not develop diabetes, heart disease, or anything like that. Ask the Eskimos, they do it all the time. If you're worried about eating zero carbs, you don't have to worry because almost everything has a little bit of carbs. When you eat your spinach, lettuce, carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, and kale, they all have carbohydrates. It's just the best form of carbohydrate because it's not a grain. It's fibrous and water-rich, so it's absorbed almost infinitely slowly. It has virtually no impact on insulin. That's why those carbs have close to a zero glycemic index. To sum it up, what do we eat? Cut back on sugar first, cut back on grains second. Eat as many vegetables as you like. Eat as much healthy fat from avocados, nuts, and healthy oils and fats like butter, olive oil, and coconut oil. And eat a moderate amount of protein. Get the best quality protein you can. If you want to eat an animal, which I'm all for in moderation, make sure it lived like an animal is supposed to live. Animals were supposed to live in the wild. They eat grass, have a healthy life, lean bodies, and develop a very healthy fat ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. If the animal was healthy, then it is healthy for you to eat it as long as you have a good digestive system. So hit that subscribe button if you're not already following this channel. By following, we will keep feeding you good information. We want to help you understand the body, health, and physiology, so you're not a victim of fads, trends, and misinformation. If you have questions or concerns, please leave us a comment. Let us know what you want more information about, and we will do our very best to answer these questions and provide information that you can use. Thank you for watching.